Former Republican Congressman Mike Gallagher, who left the House back in April, joining Palantir to lead the company's defense business. Mike joins us now from Wisconsin. First, right here on Squawk Box. Good morning to you. I can't call you congressman anymore, but I can ask you why you decided to take this job.
Well, I've dedicated my life to defending the country, first in the Marine Corps and then in Congress. My mission is to prevent World War III, as we've talked about before. With Palantir, I have an opportunity to continue that mission in the private sector. We have war in the Middle East. We have war in Europe. We have a Cold War in the Indo-Pacific that risks turning hot if we don't get our act together and get off this path of complacency. And I firmly believe that Palantir is at the leading edge of deterrence in the 21st century, the era of software-defined warfare, where on the modern battlefield, countries that don't leverage advanced algorithmic warfare systems are simply unilaterally disarming. I would further say that in communities like mine, a manufacturing community in northeast Wisconsin, Palantir is at the leading edge of revitalizing America's industrial base. And finally, I would say, as we've talked about multiple times, in chairing the Select Committee on China, I came to realize that the true divide on national security is not really between Republicans and Democrats, but rather between Wall Street / corporate America and normal America. And too often, corporate America was simply unwilling to defend American values from Chinese Communist Party aggression and transnational repression. But with Palantir, you have a company that is unapologetic in its defense of the West and its belief that the free world is a good thing and worth fighting for. I think it shows that you can succeed without selling your soul in the process.
Mike, well, let me ask you two questions. One is, you were the House Select Committee chair on competition with China, and there were a lot of lessons that came out of that. Do you have more hope or less? And did you think you had the power to change things there, or did you decide ultimately that there was no power to do that in that role?
No, I felt like I had the best job in Congress, and we got a ton done. In fact, the last bill I got passed, I think, was one of the most consequential of the 118th Congress, the TikTok bill. And really, I was revitalized in my belief that Republicans and Democrats can work together to get big things done. I think the challenge we face is that we have an adversary, which is not just a military threat, it's also an economic and technological and ideological threat. So we're having to flex a lot of muscles we haven't flexed in a long time. And we have too many people that are unwilling to even utter the words new Cold War for fear that some sort of Voldemort phenomenon will take place and suddenly will summon some evil powers. We just need to get the energy and alacrity and creativity and wage that Cold War with that same energy we would wage an actual hot war. And that's the business we need to be in, preventing war. And too often, I think China has lulled us into a false sense of security. So
one of the things you just said before was this idea that you think corporate America has actually played a role in preventing, frankly, the U.S. government from doing more as it relates to China. Palantir has been very outspoken on these issues. Having said that, Palantir does lots of business with corporate America today.
Yeah, I think Palantir is showing the way forward, which is that it's going to be increasingly difficult for companies to maintain their manufacturing presence in China. And I think increasingly what we see is that Xi Jinping is expediting his plan to decouple from the West. So what is the solution? We all need to work together. We can't just demonize big tech. I can't just sit here and demonize corporate America. We have to lay out an affirmative, positive path where we, working together with our closest allies, the Aussies, the Brits, key countries in the Indo-Pacific, pool our technological resources, our human resources to outcompete and win this competition and prevent war in the process. I think that's the path forward. Again, I think Palantir is playing a key role. And I think we need to revitalize our entire defense industrial base and make it easier for new companies to get into that space and cross the valley of death. Palantir is one of the few who's actually done it successfully and broken through the DoD status quo mindset and the bureaucracy that oftentimes makes it too difficult to do business.
I wanted to ask you actually about TikTok, ByteDance, and the bill that you helped pass, which pushes or presses ByteDance to sell TikTok by, I believe, January 19th, 2025. Obviously, there's lots of appeals going on in court. How do you think that is going to end?
I think the bill will survive any legal challenges, if for no other reason than we spent months and months working through a draft, inviting technical assistance and feedback from the administration. This was the product of multiple iterations. It was a very thoughtful process. In fact, it's exactly how the legislative process should work. And you had the legislative branch working with the executive branch. I'm very confident it will survive any legal challenge. And listen, the outcome we want to see is that the Chinese Communist Party allows ByteDance to divest TikTok away from its core business. And therefore, you could have an American company, European company, some conglomerate assume ownership. Users could continue to use the platform without the fear of espionage or coercion or propaganda that's infecting the platform right now.
So here's a question for you. Here is Congress saying this is a very dangerous platform, and yet you have former President Trump using the platform for his campaign, and you have Vice President Harris using the platform for her campaign. What does that say about the danger?
Well, neither should be using the platform. I think it just shows that political expediency, the desire to win younger voters who are hyper online, is taking precedence over national security concerns. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is I think my committee in Congress has shown that Democrats and Republicans took this issue seriously. If you look at the final vote tally, we got over 350 votes. I'm not sure anything else has commanded that level of bipartisan support. So I do think, notwithstanding the political exigencies of the moment, there are thoughtful members of Congress and the executive branch trying to do the right thing. And I will concede this is a very complex issue. It's bound up in a broader issue of cross-border data flows, foreign adversary control of social media. And so it's not just cut and dry, but we tried to be very nuanced in approaching a complex issue. So it's why I'm optimistic about the path going forward.